Brian, I'm here, the world's strongest pro bodybuilder. Got a little informal get together today. I'm just going to run through some things on the vertical diet, all things vertical. Make some food, monster mashes. And I want to introduce my good friend, my partner in crime, the bro, actually the science to go with the bro. This is Damon Mccune.
How you doing?
Damon, give a little, little rundown on all those initials after your name.
Absolutely. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Damon Mccune. I'm a registered dietitian and exercise physiologist. I'm actually all but dissertation on my PhD in exercise physiology. And so a lot of my research focuses on resistance training performance and how to manipulate different nutritional components to enhance that performance.
That's right. Well, we're really informal today. We're in the middle of a bit of a remodel, so if you see some things unfinished or hear some noise in the background, got the kids running around and stuff like that, don't worry about it. I'm gonna start by making some rice. Let's do that. I'm so proud of my wife. She got this fancy little thing here. It's 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of rice, 3 cups of rice. There it is. Look at that. Let me get one of those. And I get the old rice timer so that I can schedule this so that it's hot and ready when I wake up in the morning. I got 3 cups of rice, 6 cups of water. You know, I did a rant, I talked about the fact that if you cook rice and then you refrigerate it and let it cool overnight, and the next morning when you reheat it, it creates a bit of some resistant starches, and so you don't get quite as many calories out of it. Not a huge deal unless you're in kind of a hard gainer and you have to count every calorie. For somebody like Hawthorne Shaw, of course, I want them to get every calorie, and so I encourage them to eat fresh rice. But for the average individual, not a big deal. I get asked that question a lot ever since I did that on the rant. Start with some rice. Okay, steaks on the menu as usual. You know, mini steak. It's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I've said a lot about why I like steaks. Shakes are for fakes, eat steaks, all that other stuff. You ever seen a big chicken? You know how it works. But basically, you gotta get your protein from somewhere. And my goal with vertical diet is to make sure that you have not only the best quality protein, but also the most micronutrients to come with it. The heme iron obviously is the most bioavailable form of iron. The B12, the zinc, and the CLAs that are in steak, you can't get that in chicken. Steaks are a ruminant animal. They they regurgitate their food, chew their cud, and that process of the multiple stomachs, it converts the omega-6s into CLAs. And so you get about a 4-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio. Chickens, on the other hand, aren't. They only have one stomach, and they cannot ferment the foods, and they therefore cannot convert the omega-6s into 3s or to CLAs. And so they've got about a 17-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So I prefer steak for all of those reasons, and it just, as a matter of just fact, just from seeing it so many times over the years, every time I put athletes on steak instead of chicken, their performance improves. I think especially women in terms of the iron and the B12, which are 2 things that they tend to be deficient in. So this is a ribeye today. I usually specify a leaner steak, but just for some folks that need a little extra fat, a little extra calories in their diet, I'm not burning a ton of carbs right now because I'm not doing a lot of workouts. I'm not doing 2-a-days. I do my 10-minute walks. And so I don't have as many carbs in my diet, but I still need a decent amount of calories because I got a pretty big metabolism. And so I get them from fats because that's kind of more of what I'm burning at rest. And so I try and fuel my body with the kinds of foods or fuels that I'll be using throughout the day. And the ribeye has a higher fatty content. Matter of fact, more recently you've noticed that when Shaw was originally started his diet, the vertical diet, he was using the top sirloin steak. And he lost a lot of body fat quick. He lost like 16 pounds, he leaned out. But at the lighter weight, he was having a little trouble with stability under the big 1,300-pound yokes. And so we exchanged the ribeye for the top sirloin and threw in some bacon for breakfast. But when we brought his fats up, he was able to put a little more weight back on and was more stable and stronger at that weight. So, you know, you can copy and paste diets all day long, but it's the way you manipulate foods over the long term based on how you respond, how individuals respond, that's most important. So I'm gonna go with ribeye today, and then I'll follow that up by making some bison burgers. And I know everybody thinks I'm a shill for Costco, but I'm telling you, the quality of the meats at Costco is light years ahead of what you get at your average grocery store, Sam's Club, or Walmart. Since I cook my meats in advance, and then I'll put them in a Ziploc baggie and throw them in the fridge so I can heat them up later, when you reheat Costco meat, it still tastes good. When you reheat grocery store meat, it tastes like dog food. So I'd suggest you get the Costco meats. They, I think, own their own butchers.
I'll jump in on that too. Costco meats is a choice or better product. So in terms of USDA labeling and grading, it's a choice or better, which is a very good cut of meat. So I'll be a shill too.
And hey, it tastes great, it's affordable, and so I always go with the Costco meats. I'll do a little salt on there. New salt shaker that doesn't work.
Any salt in particular, Stan?
This one here is the Redmond Real Salt, which is that ancient seabed that Dr. D. Nicolantonio talks about in the book The Salt Fix, as being a very high quality salt, very clean salt. That having been said, I don't want to be too particular for folks who are on a budget. Salt is necessary, and what you can afford is important. And you know, in my diet, of course, I talk about iodine too. So if you're not using the cranberry juice for iodine, then use an iodized salt. Bam. Let's go prep some burgers. All right, no meal's worth cooking without some monster mash. So I've got the ground bison, also Costco, as figures. This stuff tastes amazing, very high quality meat. Again, iron, B12, zinc, CLAs. So I'll show you how I prep this. I do this almost on a daily basis because I eat about 4 of these mash a day, and I recommend it to all my clients. It's so easy to consume, and because it's ground, it's a little easier to digest if you have to eat a lot of food. Just because it's almost pre-chewed, I guess you'd say. It has more surface area. So it's really easy on the digestion. Plus, when I add the bone broth to it, that also helps with the digestion, helps the health of the gut. So I'm going to show you how I prep these real easy.
Probably talk a little bit about difference between grass-fed and grain-fed too, and if that's necessary. For most individuals out there, it's a lot like he was talking about with the salt. In terms of grass-fed and grain-fed, there's a lot of maybe misunderstanding out there in the world. In terms of nutritional content, there's not a huge difference between grass-fed and grain-fed. It very much depends on the animal, the lifestyle of the animal, what it was fed throughout its life. And so the nutritional difference may be marginal by the end of the day when it's actually slaughtered. So whatever you can afford, whatever fits into your budget, go with that. Some people prefer the taste of the grass-fed, but the true meaning of that is really for the last 6 months of their life, they're finished on grass. Every cow in its lifespan is going to eat grass. It's just that last 6 months of finishing where they'll be given grass. And sometimes that grass is very similar to the feed it would get if it was a conventional animal, so the taste may not even be different. So whatever you like and whatever fits into your budget.
Yeah, and I've said in my seminars that you've seen before, the biggest thing they talk about is that the grass-fed and grass-finished meat has more omega-3s. The problem is they're of such small quantity in meat that that's not really where you'd go to get them anyhow. That's when I'd throw a salmon in and to get your omega-3s.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the difference between just a few grams and 200 grams. So pretty significant. So I just mash these down a little bit. And I'll grill them just like that. Let's go flip our steak. There it goes.
Did you want these now?
No, we don't have room on the grill for them yet. That one took on some fire. To clean my grill a little better next time. Give that another 4 minutes.
For those of you wondering, these are 1.25 pounds a piece.
You know, I get a lot of people asking me about vertical diet on a budget. I got college students, you know, young cats that they can't afford $7.99 a pound for ground bison. I love the taste of it. Yeah, it's a quality meat, but as Damon said, you can use a ground beef. Costco has an 87.13 that's really affordable. It's $3.99 or thereabouts a pound. And it's a really high quality, good tasting meat, and you get just as much nutrition out of it. You absolutely do get just as much iron, just as much B12, just as much zinc. So, you know, absolutely, you can do the vertical diet on a budget, substitute the lean ground beef for the steak, save a lot of money that way. Everything else is really affordable, except for maybe the cranberry juice, depending on where you live. In that case, we just substitute some iodized salt and you're good.
Cranberry juice at Trader Joe's is pretty reasonable. I think it's $2.99 a bottle.
Yeah. Now, also, internationally, I get a lot of folks who say that ground beef is really expensive and bison is just simply unavailable. A lot of my folks that are in, say, Iceland, we go to lamb. Lamb's a ruminant animal, same thing. 4 stomachs, creates the good CLAs, iron, B12, zinc. So that's an excellent source. What are some others? Even pig. Pig is a ruminant animal, so you're going to get a lot higher quality, you know, more bioavailable vitamins out of that one as well, minerals. So, and you know, some folks throw a chicken in there. That's cool. I'm saying what I operate on is a good, better, best scenario. And if I can optimize something, I'm going to. And that's why I go with the red meats. Better check my steaks because I see a lot of smoke out there. Time to clean my grill. This little guy right here is golden. This is the hack of the century. It's a thermo pen, and it's a real fast thermometer. So you just stick it in and immediately it gives you a temperature, 130 degrees. I usually shoot for these guys, I mean, I think you gotta be north of 150 to be safe. They want it to be at 165, I think is the temperature. Steaks can be a little cooler because the bacteria doesn't penetrate the skin and get to the center. But with my burgers, bison and that, I'm always cook those to 165. But this pen shows me right where I'm at, so.
When you take those off too, they'll continue to heat. So they usually go up another 5 to 10 degrees after you remove them from the grill.
Perfect. And this little baby right here, look at the size of that spatula. This is a great burger spatula right there. Got that off of Amazon. Give these a couple more minutes. Who gets the burnt one?
Beef's beef, right?
Yes, it is. Now the vegans are gonna be like, "There's carcinogens on that steak." Bastards. That's another thing. Since I'm pre-cooking these and reheating them later, I might underdo them just a little bit because I'm going to Ziploc them, put them in the fridge, and then I'll pull it out later tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, and I'll heat it up for a couple of minutes in the microwave so I can get a little more temperature out of it that way.
And like Stan said, that's okay with the steaks, but I would not recommend that for the ground beef. Because with the surface area exposed like that on the ground beef, if you don't cook it to temperature, you're much more likely to have some foodborne illness happen, and nobody is going to enjoy that. So.
Yeah. Might as well pop these on. Ready to roll? Alrighty. Here's a little hack I like to do. You notice that I haven't had to handle that hamburger, so I just turn that like so. Right here. Put it on the grill, just like that. Same thing here. Just fold that under a little ways. Pop it on there. There we go. Usually 4 minutes aside and I'm good. Okay, so we threw the rice on, we threw the meat on, and the last thing is the chicken stock. A lot of people say chicken stock, bone broth, as long as it's boiled bones. And I actually prefer chicken bones because there's more joints, so you get more collagen, more gelatin from chicken bones than the long bones of, say, a cow if it's beef stock or beef broth. The problem is most people, they just make like a chicken flavored broth, and it's not actually boiled bones. It might just be bouillon cube or chicken flavoring, and they'll just throw in some vegetables, etc. A lot of them will use vegetable oils, a lot of them will use garlic, some of them will use sugar. So I try and avoid all of that. And once again, the Costco one happens to be one of the highest quality products that you can make, short of making it yourself. And I've said before that at the Vertical Diet, our meals, we actually do boil our own bones and make our own bone broth. So, but short of that, this is the one to get. A lot of the others have all those extra ingredients that I'm not a big fan of. So
Surprisingly, the chicken stock actually has a little bit more potassium than the beef stock too.
yeah, that'll be a biggie. We'll talk more about potassium later. If I can do this without ruining them. Another 4 minutes, see what happens.
The other thing to be aware of with the bison, there's a lot of misunderstanding in the world that if you get bison, it's automatically just leaner than ground beef, and that also varies based on what people decide to buy. Just like with beef, you can buy a different level of fat content with the bison. So same thing with turkey burgers. A lot of people think that turkey burgers are just automatically lean because it's turkey, but you can actually get a pretty fatty piece of bison or turkey compared to beef. So.
Let's make up some Monster Mash. So I got a few different scenarios here. So if I'm going to eat the Monster Mash right now, I'll just prep one in the bowl and eat it. You've seen me do this before. I usually eat about half of one of these. It's about 7 ounces. And I'll pop that in there. And then I'll throw in a cup of rice. Like so. And then I'll throw in about a cup of chicken stock. Just a ballpark. And I'll usually season it a little more salt. And then I mash that up real good. This is where we sing our song. We're gonna have to dub that in. And that's my mash. That's my kids' favorite food. They love it. You can add some spinach to that or some peppers. I kind of like it just like this, and I'll show you how I add my vegetables here in a second. Bam. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is that I just Ziploc a couple of these. This is my meal prep for, say, tomorrow or later today. Get a big gallon Ziploc. Now remember, I said I like to eat my rice fresh, so I leave a hot rice cooker going so my rice is always hot and warm and fresh and it doesn't have that cooling, reheating, resistant starch effect. That's just my preference because I need all the calories I can get. So I'll just toss my cooked bison burger in the fridge, and then my next meal, all I have to do is pull this out, heat it for a couple of minutes, throw the fresh rice in with some chicken stock, and I got another meal. There it is. Okay, let's do scenario number 3. 3 and 4, we'll kind of do them together. So we leave a couple of these burgers in the bowl. That's probably 4 monster mashes in there. So I'm going to put in 4 cups of rice right here. And this is meal prep if you want to put it into Tupperware and have it all done and ready just to heat up later. So I'll put in a little more than 4 cups of rice. And then usually if I'm traveling somewhere, I'll put in 4 cups of chicken stock also. I'll just put the remaining 3 in here and blend it up. And we'll mash that up. What do I got for a monster masher? All right, we got to dub in the monster mash music again. Okay, now you can go one of 2 directions with this. You can put the monster mash into a Tupperware and refrigerate it and heat it up later. Or you could put the monster mash into a Tupperware and freeze it, and then I can either pack it, tomorrow morning when I wake up and pack my bags, I'm off to Denver, I'm gonna go see Brian on Monday. So what I'll do is I'll put some of this into Tupperwares and I'll freeze a bunch of them. Sometimes I'll freeze as many as 10 of them, depending on how long I'm gonna be gone. And I'll put it in my checked luggage and I'll just check the bag. And then wherever I land, I've got frozen, gradually thawing, depending on the length of the trip. And I'll take that to my hotel. I always get a place with a fridge and a microwave or a kitchenette. And I'll just put it in the refrigerator there and I'll have meals to eat while I'm there. Or, while I'm on the trip, what I'll do is I'll use the thermos. And you've all heard me talk about the thermos. I'll take a nice hot monster mash and I'll put it in the thermos and put the lid on it. And then I'll just take that with me. And if you're going to work, you can take a couple of these. If I'm jumping on a plane, I'll take a couple. I can head to the airport and eat one on the plane and then have one, say if there's a connection or when I land, depending on the length of the flight. I take as many as I need to be able to eat every 3 hours, and I plan it such that when I arrive wherever I'm at and I end up being able to pull out one of the frozen meals, I've got enough meals. I just got back from the UK last weekend. I took 6 meals with me, and it was a 14+ hour, 16-hour day with the layovers and the 2 flights. And I had meals all day long, hot meals. These things stay in the thermos. What I'll do is heat this up really hot. I would probably put it in the microwave for a couple minutes and get it to it was just almost boiling. And I'll pop it in here and put the lid on, and it'll stay hot for about 12 or 14 hours. I can still eat those meals. And the Thermopen I've tested after at least 10 hours are still 140 degrees. So a lot of different ways to work the Monster Mash to make sure that you got meals every time you need them. so vegetables, and particularly spinach. I'm a big, huge fan of spinach. 4,700 milligrams of potassium a day, and I like to get it from my food. In my recent rant on Blood Pressure Quick Fix Kit, I talked about how important potassium is for high blood pressure. It's a huge one. For constipation, it's a big one. For cramping, it's enormous. Did I miss any?
Overall general health. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things you really got to work for throughout the day to get. If anybody's ever tried tracking their potassium, getting 4,700 milligrams is a
Hard
challenge.
to do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. So here's how I throw it together. I'll throw in at least 1, maybe 2 potatoes a day. They're about 1,000 milligrams a piece of potassium. And then I got to get in about 8 or 10 ounces of spinach a day. That's another 1,500 milligrams of potassium. Well, how do I do that? Because spinach is kind of bland. I'm going to throw together a shake. I've got my little Ninja shake here. And with at least 2 meals a day, maybe 3, I'll put together a spinach shake, and I'll show you how it works. Follow me. We need a cup. Bam, blender cup, blender lid. All right.
Just like Stan mentioned too with the potatoes, it doesn't need to be a sweet potato. Regular potatoes are also very high in potassium. They actually have more potassium than serving a banana. So.
Yeah, regular potato has more potassium than a sweet potato, as a matter of fact. So I did say regular potato, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so here's my spinach. This is just a fresh spinach from Costco, the organic baby spinach. And what I do, I bring it home and I put it in the freezer. And that way it's nice and cold, and it makes it a lot easier, I think, and tastier. And I'll just stuff a ton of that into this cup. Look, I'm packing a decent amount in there. I'm trying to get at least 4 to 5 ounces so that if I drink it twice a day, I get my 8 to 10 ounces of spinach. And these are actually pretty delicious. Spinach doesn't have a lot of taste. And then I throw in about 4 or 5 ounces of orange juice. And remember, orange juice also has potassium in it.
For reference, that's about a 16-ounce container. He's got that in, so that'd be 2 cups of spinach.
Yeah, about 2 cups of spinach. And usually I gotta water it down just for consistency. If you don't have cold spinach, I'd suggest you throw some ice water in there. It tastes a lot better cold. And that's it. You drink that with your meal. Man, the colder the better. This is good stuff. So you might also know that if you've ever seen Blaine Sumner's diet, he throws in at least 2 cups of spinach twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day with his chicken shakes. And he's been doing that for years. Huge benefit for potassium. I think we talked about blood pressure, we talked about constipation, we talked about, what else? Everything. It's just amazing. Cramping, heart arrhythmias, all of that can be averted with potassium. 4,700 milligrams a day. I also add in addition to the orange juice and the spinach and the potatoes daily, I add in a serving of yogurt, of Greek yogurt. That also has potassium. And salmon. Believe it or not, salmon has a decent amount of potassium in it.
And carrots.
And carrots, and I throw those in as well. And that's the only thing I'd add to this meal is about 4 baby carrots, and I think I've got a pretty complete meal here. I'll eat this probably 3 times a day, and then mix it up with a steak or with some eggs or with some yogurt on 2 or 3 other meals a day.